Hello, this is Rod from the Alchemist Den, the Esoteric and Hermetic Study Society. So what we will see today is I try to put together this instruction, these slides, in order to show how to build and how to construct the planetary magic squares or kamias, and how to build the sigil of the planet, so the intelligence and the spirit of each planet with their own sigil, and how to actually is built and overimpose to their respective kamiya. And we start with the first planet, the outer planet, which is Saturn. I put in this slide both the Ptolemaic map of the universe and the corresponding Kabbalistic tree of life, as is clearly depicted the position of Saturn, which is the position number 3. And that's why the kamiya, or the planetary square of Saturn, is a 3 by 3 square, for a total of 9 blocks. And we'll see how to fill in actually this square. For Saturn is relatively easy because the kamiya is pretty small. All what we have to do is to add 1 block on each side and start to fill in the number from the top diagonal and following the diagonal line. So 1, 2, 3, following to the next 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. So at this point we have 5 numbers that are within the square and 4 numbers that are outside. And all we need to do at this point is to bring this number back into the square. And what we do, we bring them to the farthest opposite position. So we'll bring 1 to the opposite bottom, we'll bring 7 to the opposite right side, and we repeat exactly the same thing for the other 2 numbers. So the 3 will go to the opposite left, and the 9 will go to the opposite top of the square. And this is it. So basically here we have our square, which is completed. And by definition, a magic square are supposed to have exactly the same total, whether you sum the content of the cells in a horizontal way, a vertical way, or diagonal way. And in the case of Saturn square, this total is 15. Another very important number related to the kamiya is the sum of the total of either the columns or the rows. So in this case, associated to Saturn, we will have the number 45, and this is a very important number for the association with Saturns. And next we will see why as we move on to see how to construct and draw the sigil of the intelligence and the spirit of Saturn over its magic square. So first of all, is the intelligence of Saturn is Agiel, and in Hebrew is pretty much very similar. It's not always the case, but for Saturn, again, we are lucky because the Hebrew letters and the English pronunciation are very similar. So mind the Hebrew, because again, this is right to left, so the A of Agiel will be the first letter on the right side, which we have Aleph, followed by Gimel. Next we will have Yod, and then again Aleph, and final we will have Lamed. So what we do next is to assign, or better take, the geometric value of the letters, and we just assign them one by one according to the Hebrew gematria. So Aleph is corresponding to number 1, Gimel is corresponding to number 3, Yod is corresponding to number 10, Aleph again number 1, and finally we have El, which is associated number 30. And here you see the total of the geometric value of the Hebrew letter goes back to our Saturn number of 45. Next we'll try to put the sigil of Agiel over the Saturn square. So all what we need to do is to follow the geometric numbers, starting from, again, right to left, of course. So the first connection that we see is 1 to 3. Next, it will be 3 to 10, but we don't have 10 in the Kamiya. So what we do, we reduce, we take out the 0, and we reduce the 10 to 1, and we go back to the block of 1. We will have again 1, so in that case, when you see that symbol, means that basically the block is repeated, and then again from 1 to 3. There we go. There we have our sigil of the intelligence of Saturn, Agiel, overimposed to the Kamiya. Next, we see the same thing for the spirit of Saturn, which is the Vel. Again, here we have a very similar, is very corresponding, the English pronunciation and the Hebrew letters. In fact, we have Zain, we have Aleph, we have again Zain, and then we have Lamed at the end. So Zazel. Same way as above, I just put down the geometric value of the letters. So we find Zain at number 7, Aleph at number 1, again Zain at number 7, and Lamed at number 30. And again, the total of the geometric value take us back to 45. So let's put also the Zel over the Kamiya. And we'll see, we'll have to go first 7 to 1, and then back to 7. And then from 7 to 30, we don't have 30, so we reduce to 3. And that's about it. So for Saturn, this is basically completed. We have placed both the intelligence Agiel and the spirit, the Vel, over the Kamiya of Saturn. Next, we move to Jupiter. Again, we'll see in both Ptolemaic and Kabbalistic Tree of Life, Jupiter is in position number 4. Therefore, his Kamiya magic square it will be a 4x4 square. Again, it's still relatively easy to fill in this Kamiya, but it's a little bit more trickier than Saturn. What we do here is I have highlighted the external blocks and the 4 main blocks, because now we'll see the reason. Anyway, at this point we start to fill in the numbers starting from the top, right way and down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Now let's leave the number that are highlighted in the cells as they are, the numbers in red, while we go to replace the number in the white cells, starting to recount again from the bottom, but skipping the one that are highlighted or already in the cell in red. So what we do, we will start with number 1, but it's already 16 in there, so we don't change anything. We will have next 2 and 3. We will not put 4 because 13 was already there. And then we go up, we put the 5, 6 and 7 will skip, we'll put the 8, and then we'll put the 9, 10, 11 we will skip, and we'll put the 12, and then finally we'll put the 14 and 15 on the top. And that's about it. A little bit trickier, but still relatively simple to build, because this is already our Jupiter square, and Jupiter square, the total numbers for each row, column, and diagonal is gonna be 34, the sum of which is 136. And as well as for Saturn, the number 136 is the number associated with Jupiter. Next, we will put his intelligence and spirit over the Kamiya. Starting with the intelligence of Jupiter, which is the Ophiel, and here is already a little bit more difficult than Saturn, because as we well know, Hebrew don't have, beside the Aleph, don't have any other vowels in their alphabet, in the ancient alphabet. So the O or the other sounds that we find are pretty much approximate. In fact, how we spell Yophiel in Hebrew, we will start with the Yod, with the I, and we will have the H, the Hey, and then we will have the Pei, the P, and then we will have again the Yod, the I, and then Aleph, and Lamed at the end. So it's what I read actually here is Yophiel more than Yophiel, but it's still similar, and this is the right way to write it. As well as for Saturn, what I do is writing down the geometric value of each letter. So we start again with Yod, which is number 10. We have He, that is number 5. We have Pei, which is number 80. And then again Yod at number 10. Aleph at number 1. And finally Lamed at number 30. And the sum of these numbers take us back to our 136, or the number of Jupiter. Let's write the sigil over our Kamiya. So we start from 10 to 5, and then 5 to 80. We don't have the 80, so we reduce to 8, and then 8 back to 10. In this case, this is an exception that we have. We'll have a few of these exceptions, but this is one of those. In this case, the number 10 Yod and the number 1 Aleph are put together, and so instead of going 10 and then 1, we go directly to number 11, and then finally Lamed at number 30. And there we go. This is basically the sigil of Yophiel completed over the Kamiya. Next, we'll have the Spirit of Jupiter, which is his smile. As well as above, the vowel plays a little bit a trick here. What we have in the correct sequence, we will have Hey, we will have Samek, we will have Mem, and then Aleph, and then Lamed. So what I read actually literally it would be Hizmal, but of course this the closest transliteration we can make is Ismail. Again, we go to associate the geometric values, so we will have Hey at number 5, we will have Samek at number 60, we will have Mem at number 40, Aleph at number 1, and finally again Lamed at number 30. We sum it up and we go back to our 136 number of Jupiter. We'll put these values over the Kamiya. So the first will be from 5 to 60. We don't have 60, so we just go from 5 to 6. 6 to 4, 60 to 40, again 40 same. We don't have 40, so we will reduce to 4, and then back to 1, and then finally to 3. And that's completed the sigil of his smile over the Kamiya of Jupiter. Moving forward, always going down our Ptolemaic map and the Tree of Life, where we find Mars in the fifth position. Therefore, Mars will have a 5 by 5 planetary square. How we make Mars is similar to what we did for Saturn. The only way is that we will have to add one more row, and we'll make this a kind of pyramid structure, where we'll add 3 plus 1 on each side of the Kamiya, and we fill in exactly the same way. So starting from the top, going down diagonally, so 1 to 5, and then down again 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, and finally 21 to 25th. Same process again. We'll bring the numbers that are outside the Kamiya to their farthest opposite within the Camilla. So number 1 will go down to the opposite and farthest place all the way down. 16 will bring it to the opposite and farthest on the right side. We'll repeat for the number 4, number 25th. And that's pretty much it. And then we have completed our planetary square for Mars. Mars, the total number for the square, for whether if it's diagonal, vertical, or horizontal, is 65, the sum of which is 325. And 325 is our key number corresponding to the the planet Mars. Okay, so again, as we did before, we'll try to put the sigil of the intelligence and the spirit over the Camilla, starting with the intelligence of Mars. The intelligence of Mars is Graphiel. Now, in this case, the Hebrew is a little bit more difficult, is a little bit not maybe 100% corresponding to the sound that we have in English. Starting right to left, what I have is Gimel, so G, and then we have Resh, R, and then we have Aleph, A, and then we have Pei, P, and then we have Yod, E, I, and then we have Aleph, A, and then finally Lamed, L. So what I actually read is Graphiel, still similar, but a little bit different. We're going to put the geometric value of corresponding to the Hebrew letters. So we have Gimel at 3, we have Resh at 200, Aleph at 1, Pei at 80, Yod at 10, again Aleph at 1, and finally Lamed at 30. Let's construct the sigils from the first line, which will go from 3 to 200. We don't have the 200 in the square, so we reduce to the number 2. So we'll have 3 to 2, and then we go 2 to 1, 1 to 80. Again, 8 is not in there, so we will reduce to 8. Back to 10 again, as we did before. Again, in this case, Aleph number 1 and Yod number 10 are combined together into the cell of 11. Finally, we connect it back to number 3, as the 30 is not there. And this is the sigil of Graphiel. Moving forward, we have the spirit of Mars, Barzabel. We'll see it in Hebrew, right to left. We have Beth, we have Resh, we have Tzadi, we have Beth, we have Aleph, and we have Lamed. I assign the geometric value. So we have Beth at number 2, Resh number 200, Tzadi at 90, again Beth at 2, Aleph at 1, and Lamed at 30. And the number, the total, of course, take us back to 325, number of Mars. Let's put then Barzabel over the Camilla. 2 to 200. So in this case, you see, we will have to repeat in the same square, in the same block, we'll have to repeat 2 twice. So that's why we'll have that sign. And then the 2 to 90 that we reduced to 9, 9 back to 2, 2 to 1, and then finally 1 to 30, or better, reduced to number 3. And there we go. Barzabel is overimposed to the Camilla of Mars. Moving forward, we arrive to position number 6, which is the position of the Sun. Being position number 6, of course, we will have a 6 by 6 planetary square. And how to construct this planetary square is a little bit difficult, so we'll try to go really step by step. The first thing that we want to do is to highlight the cells radiating from the 4 central squares. This is going to make it easier to understand how we process the numbers inside. And then we start to fill in the numbers starting from the top right and going leftward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we go back 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth until the last row, 31 to 36. Now, as we did before, we don't touch and we leave the numbers that are within the cells in gray, so the numbers in red are gonna stay. But for the other number, we start again to replace them, but this time we start to count from the bottom right, going alternate leftward and rightward. So let's start from the first one. So the first one will have 31st inside. We don't touch that. We put 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next we move from left to right. 7, skip the 8, 9 and 10, skip 11 and 12. When we arrive there again, we go right to left, so 13, 14, leave the 15, 16, we don't touch, 17, 18, 19, 20, and so on and so forth. So we complete until the number 35. And then there is a few more things that we need to do in order to complete the Kamiya of the Sun. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to take the central numbers that we see there. So number 27 and 28 and number 10 and number 9 will switch position. So 27 will replace 28 and number 10 will replace number 9. One more thing we need to do is the central number 20, 17 and 14. We will change position, moving one step forward in a anti-clockwise position. So in this case, the 14 will go to replace the 20, and then so on, and the other number will follow accordingly. Same concept we apply to the number 4, 3, and 33. Again, they will switch position, will switch one position in anti-clockwise direction. The number 30, 7, and 25th will follow the same rules, and they will switch one position each. And then finally, we reach the end, and our Kamiya of the Sun is completed. The Kamiya of the Sun, the sum of each row, columns, and diagonally is 111, the sum of which is 666 or 666. It's pretty surprising, but actually for who is a little bit more into the esoteric studies, I don't think there will be any surprise in finding the Sun associated to the number 666. About the construction of the sigils for the intelligence and the spirit, we will start with the intelligence as we did before. The intelligence of the Sun is Nachiel. We'll write it in Hebrew. And what we have, again, right to left, we have Nun, we have Kaf, we have Yod, we have Aleph, and finally we have Lamed. Geometric value, which is 50 for Nun, we have 20 for Kaf, 10 for Yod, 1 for Aleph, and 30 for Lamed. Total 111, which is the sum of the horizontal and vertical blocks of the square. We'll put these numbers into the sigil and over the Kamiya. So the first one will be 50, or better 5 to 20. Next we will have to connect 20 to 10. 10 will go to 1, and finally 1 back to 30. We don't have, in this case, actually we do have the 30, but which is another exception that we have. In this case, instead of using the 30, we use the reduction of number 3. Next is the spirit of the Sun, Sorath, and then I'll write it here in Hebrew. So we start with Sameth, Vav, Resh, and Tav. And this is another tricky, again, is full of tricky things actually, this construction, because the second letter that we'll see is actually Vav, which sounds more like a V than what we see in Sorath. In Sorath we don't see any V, but the pronunciation will be so V, R, Th. In this case we render as Sorath. We'll put the geometric value. So for Sameth is 60, for Vav is 6, for Resh is 200, and finally for Tav we have 400. And here we have the full number of the sun, going back to 666. Let's put Sorath over the Kamiya. So from 60 and 6, again we don't have the 60, so we'll have to repeat twice over the cell of the number 6, from 6 to 2 as reduced from 200, and then 2 to 4, 4 reduced from 400 to 4. And this is the final sigil for the complete and final sigil for Sorath. Moving forward again, we arrive in our position number 7, which is assigned to the planet Venus. 7 by 7 will be therefore the planetary square. Again, as you'll see, while the more the planetary squares start to be, we have more cells, will have to also be more complicated in the construction. And Venus as well it looks complicated, although we'll follow the same procedure that we used before for Jupiter and Saturn. So we will build this kind of pyramidal structure around the Kamiya on both sides. And as we did before, we will start from the top, going down diagonally to fill in the Kamiya. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next row 8 to 14, 15 to 21st, all the way down to from 43 to 49. Again, we are not going to touch the number that are already within the square, so the number that are in red, while for the other number that are outside the Kamiya, following the same process that we did, we'll bring them in, again pushing them to the farthest opposite location. So the number 1 and the number 9 will go respectively at the bottom of their column, number 1 and number 9 there. The number 41 and 49 will push them all the way to the top, following the same sequence, 41 and 49. And we repeat exactly the same thing for the numbers on the left and the right of the Kamiya. So 29, 36 will go to the opposite, and 5 and 6 to the opposite left. 44 and 45 will go to the opposite right. 14 and 21st will go to the opposite left. Same process we'll do also for the remaining number, as well as for the 8 and 15. 48 and 47 and 48, number 2 and number 3, and finally the number 42 and 36. And at this point we have completed, we have also the last two, but the process is the same. So 43, 37 will be pushed back all the way to the right, and 13 and 7 will be pushed all the way to the left. And here we have the final and completed planetary square for Venus. For Venus, for the sum of the columns, the sum of the cells on horizontal, vertical, and diagonal is 175, and the sum of which is 1225. Therefore, 1225 is our number associated with the planet Venus. Let's then move on and look into the sigil of the intelligence and the spirit, starting with the intelligence of Venus, or Hagil. Written in Hebrew, we will have Hey, Gimel, Yod, Aleph, and Lamed. Putting back the geometric value, we will have 5 for Hey, we will have 3 for Gimel, we'll have 10 for Yod, 1 for Aleph, and 30 for Lamed. Now, here we have an exemption because the total of these numbers, which is 49, is neither the sum of the columns or the rows and nor the planetary number, the 1225. So 49 in this case will be related to the total number of cells within the planetary square. So 7 times 7 equals 49. We then move over to draw the sigil over the Kamiya, starting from 5 to 3. Next we will have 3 moving to 10. Then we don't have 1, so we will reduce again and we'll go stay on the same cell twice. And then from this cell we'll go to the number 3, 30 reduced to 3. And here is the sigil of Hagiel over the planetary square. Next we'll see the Spirit of Venus, or Cadamel. In Hebrew we have Kaf, Dalet, Mem, Aleph, and Lamed, which geometric value will have 100 for Kaf, we'll have 4 for Dalet, 40 for Mem, 1 for Aleph, and 30 for Lamed. And here we have the 175 total, which is actually the sum of the row and column of Venus. Let's draw it on the Kamiya. So starting from the 100 to 4, 100 we don't have it, so we will reduce to 10. So we'll have the first line 10 connect to 4, 4 to 40, 40 to 1, and 1 back to 30. And here you go. This is the full and completed sigil for both the intelligence and spirit of Venus. And so we reach position number 8, where we find the planet Mercury. So we move to the Kamiya of Mercury, which will be, of course, made of an 8 by 8 square. Now, how to construct the Kamiya of Mercury is a little bit complicated, so we will go slowly, step by step. The first thing that we need to do is to fill in the Kamiya starting from the top right cell and going leftward. So 1 to 8, and then following back again 9 to 16, 17 to 24, and all the way down until 57 to 64. Now, for the next, in order to understand the process, we will have to overimpose to the planetary square the sigil of the planet. Like what you see now in purple is the sigil of the planet Mercury, the whole planet. So we overimpose this sigil, and we will start to work with the numbers in the middle of the square. So we divide them. You have like a cross. We have a series of like 4 series of 4 numbers, starting therefore with 13, 12, 21, 20, 27, 26, 35, 34, 31, 30, 39, 38, 45, 44, 53, and 52. Now, what happened to this number? We will just move them in a clockwise position. Okay, so we'll basically, this is the end result. They just move it in a clockwise position. Next, we will basically move them on a mirroring position. So the 4 numbers that were in the bottom will go mirrored on the top part. The left and right will be mirrored accordingly. Then we move to the outside numbers, the number in the outer lines. So we have 7, 6, 3 and 2, 63, 62, 59, and 58. Now, what we do with this number, again, we swap them, we switch them. So the bottom right will be the top left, the bottom left will be the top right. Not only that, but we also switch the position of the numbers as we did before. And in the same operation, we do it for the 4 series of numbers that we have on the side of the Kamiya, so 16, 24, 48, 56, 9 and 17, 41 and 49. We will do exactly the same thing. So what we do is swap position. So bottom left will be top right, and top right will be bottom left. And again, here we also swap the position of the numbers. And finally, this is completed. This was the last step. So we finally have our Kamiya of Mercury with the 64 numbers allocated into the planetary square. For the sum of the columns and rows, vertical, horizontal, and diagonal, the total will be always 260, the sum of which is 2080, and 2080 being the number corresponding to the planet Mercury. Let's then move on to the intelligence and the spirit of Mercury. Starting with the intelligence of Mercury is Tiriel, and here is how it's written in Hebrew. So we have Tet, we have Yod, we have Resh, we have Yod, we have Aleph, and finally we have Lamed. Geometric value is 9 for Tet, is 10 for Yod, is 200 for Resh, is 10 for Yod, 1 for Aleph, and 30 for Lamed. Let's connect and put the sigil over the square. So the first line will be from 9 to 10, and then 10 to 200, which will be reduced to 20. And then from 20, here we do the same thing we did before. We will have Yod at 10 and Aleph at 1. We combine them together and we connect to the cell number 11. So Aleph plus Yod. And finally, we close the sigil at Lamed, so at number 30. Next will be the spirit of Mercury, Taptaratat. And Taptaratat is easier because it uses much less letters for the Hebrew alphabet. And here we have Tav, we have Pei, we have Tav, we have Resh, we have Tav again, Resh, and finally Tav again. Geometric value, we have 400 for Tav, 80 for Pei, 400 for Tav again, 200 for Resh, 400 for Tav, 200 for Resh, and 400 finally for the last Tav, the sum of which is 2080. So it takes us back to the number of the planet. How we draw Taptaratat over the Kamiya. So we will have 400, which is reduced to 40, and we connect it to 8, which is again reduced from 80. So 40 to 8, back to 40, stretch to 20, which is reduced from 200, back to 40, back to 20 again, and we finally close again on 40. And here we go. This is the two sigils completed over the Kamiya of Mercury. And here we are at the very bottom of our planetary square presentation. So with the last planet, which is Luna, the moon, in position number 9. And this is most likely the most complicated Kamiya to both to construct and also to place the sigils over the Kamiya. So we do basically what we did for Saturn, what we did for Jupiter, and we create this pyramid structure expanding from all the 4 sides of the 9x9 square. And again, as we did before, we start filling in diagonally from the top all the way top to down right. So we'll have from 1 to 9 in the first diagonal column, and then 10 to 18, 19 to 27, 28 to 36, and so on and so forth until the last, which is from 73 to 81. Again, as we did before, we don't touch at the moment the figures that we have inside the square, but what we will do is to try to bring in the numbers that are actually outside. And we start from the two top numbers, so 1 at 11. We will bring it down to the opposite, same column, opposite farthest position. So 1 and 11 will be down there. And then we repeat for 71 and 81, opposite and farthest position on the way on the top. Exactly the same process for 10 and 20, 2 and 12. 70, 80, 62 and 72 will be brought back to the upper position. The 28, 78, 4 and 54, exactly the same process. And again, we mirror it on the side of the two sides of the Kamiya. So bringing 64, 56, 73, 65, 74, 66, and the opposite, the right side will be brought to the left. So 8, 16, 9, 17, and 18, 26 will be appearing on the right side of on the left side of the Kamiya. We have the last 5 10 numbers to bring in, and then it is what we following again the same process. We'll bring the 6, we'll bring the 55, the 7, the 18, 75, 76 and 36, 1979, 3 and 63. And here we have completed the Kamiya of Luna, of the moon. So it's not that complicated, but of course he has several numbers inside, so it will be a bit challenging also to draw the sigil for the intelligence and the spirit. That's why I will have to split it in 2 different slides, especially for the intelligence, which is going to be a little bit complicated. Going back 1 second to our Kamiya, so the total number for each row, columns and diagonal will be 369, and 3321 is the sum of the Kamiya and the number associated with moon, so 3321. And now we come to the most challenging part, most likely for Luna, for the moon, which is the intelligence. The intelligence is made by 5 words: Malka, Bitar Shishim, Head, Biruh, and Shehakim. So 5 words that we'll write in Hebrew. And as we already know, Hebrew is written right to left, so it will be exactly the opposite of what we see in the normal characters above. And I try to match the colors in order to make it a little bit easier to understand. So Malka is in light blue, Bitar Shithim is in red, Head is in yellow, Birwa in green, and Shakim in orange. So let's assign the geometric value starting from Malka. So we'll have Mem at 40, Lamed at 30, Kaf at 20, Aleph at 1. Next we have Beth at 2, Tav at 400, Resh at 200, Shin at 300, Yod at 10, Tav at 400, Yod at 10, and Mem at 600. This is because Mem, actually we saw Mem is at 40, but when Mem appears as a last letter of a word, we'll take the value of 600. So in this case, we will use 600. Next, we have Ain at 70, Dalet at 4. Next, we have Beth at 2, Resh at 200, Vav at 6, and Chet at 8. Finally, the last word, we have Shin at 300, Chet at 8, Kaf at 100, Yod at 10, and Mem, again, being the last letter, will be taken 600 as a number. And let's go for the to place the sigil of the intelligence of the moon over the Kamiya. So the first connection we will do is from 40 to 30, and then next we'll try to simplify. So the 20 and 21, we will put it into the same cell, and connect to the number directly to the number 21. Next, we will have to connect with RCSIM, so we'll start with from 2 and to 40, which is reduced from 400, down to 220, which is reduced from 200, all the way up to 30, reduced from 300, down to 10, back to 40, again reduced from 400, and then we go to 60, which is MEM, we reduce from 600 to 60. Moving to head, we have from 4 to 70, so it's just a straight line connecting the two numbers. Bihuak, and then we have number 2 to 20, reduced from 200, all the way up to 6, and closing at 8. Finally, the last word, Sheikh Hakim. So we start from 30, which is reduced from 300 to connect to 8, from 8 to 10, reduced from 100, repeated. So 10 will be repeated twice, so I have designed that makes a small circle, semicircle over there, and then close at 60, reduced from 600. It is a little bit complicated, it is a little bit messy over the Kamiya, but actually if you draw it with hands is a little bit easier. I have to make straight lines, so of course the corners are very sharp, but drawing it by hand, it can be a little bit more smoother and easier. Anyway, this is what the sigil would look like over the Kamiya. And as I say, I had to split in order to make it easier, otherwise it would have been really complicated to have both sigil over one square. So we have a new slide, a new clean Kamiya to show the spirit of the moon, Chasmodai. So for Chasmodai, we have we start with the letter. We have Chet, we have Shin, we have Mem, we have Vav, Dalet, Aleph, and Yod, which is so we start with Chet at 8, Shin at 300, Mem for these usually is at 40, but we will take a different value this time, we will see it later. And then we have Vav at 6, Dalet at 4, Aleph at 1, and Yod at 6. So just for this case, again, one of the several exceptions that we have by making these planetary squares and sigils, in this case Mem will use the value of 70. So when we draw the sigil, we start from 8 to 300, that is reduced to 30, and 30 continues all the way up to the next cell, which is 70. So making pretty much like a straight line from 8 to 70 going through the 30. From 70 we connect to 6, 6 to 4, back to Yod at 1, and back to Aleph at 1, and closing on Yod at 10. And this is the final sigil of Chasmodai, of the moon. And this is about it. So we reached the end of our presentation. I'll make sure to put some time marks so that if you need to see a specific planet, you won't have to view the whole presentation. And hopefully this information contained here will be useful. Thanks again for watching, and talk to you again pretty soon. Take care and bye-bye.